good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name's Rodney.
And my name is Zach.
Good to be talking to you, Zach, on this 70th anniversary week. It's so good to see you. You do not look a day over 71. Who would have thought? We've been doing this for 70 years now. Incredible.
I know, we were podcasting before we even knew the platform existed. We were just doing a show. We weren't even recording it. We've been doing it for an age, it feels like.
Mm. Yeah. Well, literally both of our ages combined, basically, more or less. But it's pretty close. So the 70th Grand Prix, wherever the heck 70 is, I don't know. But wherever in the world it is, that's where they had a race. And we're going to talk all about it. We've got a big old race recap coming up. We're going to have a look at our fantasy league. You've got a quiz for me, I believe, Zach. I hope so, because if not, oh boy. I mean, I literally read all of the books this week. So, yeah.
You read the required text.
Yes, exactly. I'm led to believe that's what I'm supposed to do to prepare for a quiz.
Of course.
Well, yeah. Other than that, how has your week been, and what is new in your world?
Well, I tell you what, it's a hot one, Rod. It has stayed hot.
Ooh, is it
I feel
really?
like since the last time that I spoke to you, and it is just stay right there. It's real hot. I am seriously considering taking my t-shirt off to record this podcast. But there is a slight fear, always a slight fear that the camera will just randomly switch on, or that I'll forget to put it back on before my next work meetings, and then I'll get on a call and I'll be like George in Seinfeld coming out of the toilet without his shirt on. I don't want that to happen to me. So I am just gonna, I'm just gonna suffer through it. We suffer together. That makes good content.
That's it. And I appreciate you putting yourself out like that. But yeah, do whatever you need to do. If it gets too much during the show, if you would like to pause and just like the Incredible Hulk, just rip the shirt off your body. Just feel free to do that.
I'm wearing a lilac colored shirt. What color? Isn't purple somehow Hulk related? Does he have purple shorts? Something like that? Is that Hulk adjacent?
I don't know. Yeah, he's green in color, I believe. But apart from that, I don't really know.
You probably know the least about Marvel stuff.
The story that I heard recently, which I thought was really cool, was that someone shot the guy. There's the normal guy and there's the Hulk. And then maybe the normal guy tried to kill himself and he shot himself. And then you sort of see the panel, he shoots himself. And then the next thing you see, the Hulk stands up and spits out the bullet or something like that. I was like, that's cool. Yeah, it's pretty good. That's very Hulk-like. It's those little moments that I catch every now and again. I'm like, that's clever. And then it's like, really, Rod? Clever enough to get into comics? I'm like, no, sorry, it's not. But,
there'll be more Hulk chat coming up, I'm sure.
There will be some, as we get into the race recap. Are we ready to get into this next section? Well, let's not keep anyone waiting any further. Here's the theme.
Let us race a bit.
I gave him space.
Sack my bones, man.
Let's hurry up and get out of here. We got a race to do.
Ooh, if you ask me, and no one was, that's the best rendition of that theme that we've had so far. Of all the times that I've hit play. Yeah, it is. But nevertheless, we've had our second race at the Silverstone track, and some things happened. We've got notes to prove, and we're going to speak as proof to that. But so much happened that it's going to be a fun challenge to try and fit it into 30 seconds. I think it's my turn, Zach. So, oh boy, put your feet up and relax, I suppose.
Turn the fan on. Put the mic on.
Turn the fan on, exactly. Rip your shirt off if you feel like it. Take your shoes off, whip your socks off, let those weird indentations breathe, wiggle your toes and get some air to those little puppies while I whip through this 30-second recap. All right, I'm going to do my best. Here we go. '70th anniversary Grand Prix was Bottas on pole, not Hamilton, Bottas. Did Bottas win? Heck no, he came third. A surprise victory for Max Verstappen, who snatched victory from the Mercedes. We had Kevin Magnussen leave the track and rejoin in a dangerous kind of way, and he got a penalty, which was good. Vettel found an exciting new way to spin, an all-exciting new paradigm that he's brought to Formula One of spinning without hitting anybody. It just makes no sense whether pitting more times or less times was the right way to go in this race. Give it a go.
Yeah, mate. I mean, for a race that only has, I would say, a sprinkling of talking points is how I would refer to this race. I think you brought out maybe the best.
I did.
Maybe the best.
Yeah. I tried to just cover the spread a little bit. For a race, I think that, and we just talked about this before we started recording, how there's not a lot to talk about. But for a race where Mercedes didn't win, this should be one that we're excited about. This should be like a great thing that we want to talk about. But it's sort of a little bit like, but what else you got?
It was funny after all of the there were retirements and tire explosions and stuff like that of round one Silverstone, if we're going to call this round one and round two of Silverstone, or the previous weekend. This kind of lacked the retirements and the kind of wheel to wheel action, except Alexander Albon, who I feel like made 400 overtakes to climb from 9th to 6th or something.
That math checks out.
Yeah, but it was very much a race of tyre strategy, which for Max Verstappen started on Saturday. And it was kind of, Christian Horner after the race was kind of incredulous, was like, why didn't everybody else do this? We saw the previous weekend that the tyres were going to be in real trouble. So why didn't more people try to qualify on the harder tyre, start the race on the harder tyre like Max Verstappen didn't? Do a long first stint and kind of put yourself in the position to take, to probably, I would say, have more options for the rest of the race. They were prepared for other safety cars. They were prepared for, or had options in front of them to hold off the Mercedes. I think Mercedes kind of struggled because they weren't the protagonist in this race. As soon as Max went long, all Mercedes could do was really react, and that played nicely into Max Verstappen's hands for a nice, keen win. Do you think that Mercedes could have done anything else to try to win this race, or do you think they just badly managed it?
I think that they could have probably done a little bit more to fight for the win. I mean, Bottas's criticism of, how the fuck do I go from first to third? This sucks. This is garbage. You need to do better. His criticism is you guys were napping a little bit. And I think there's sort of something to that. In a way, it might have been better if they had just run their own race a bit more. But with Verstappen behind, really, Verstappen set himself up to win in that first stint on the hard tyres. It was a pretty long one, but that was when he kind of did all the damage, because then he set himself up to be on softer tyres for the middle part of the race. And by the time he pitted in the end for another set of hards, it was like, game over. I've won. This is done. Mercedes were then scrambling to try and come up with contra options, and they split strategy on their drivers, which always seems to happen when Hamilton's behind. It's funny that. But I think that Bottas is sort of right to be saying to the team, guys, let's do better than going from first to third in the fastest car, which is faster by 1 second than the competitors in qualifying. The conditions didn't suit them. The conditions suited Red Bull, the hotter conditions, the extra load going through the tires. Mercedes just seems their car, the design philosophy of their car, and the way the car, pushes forces up and down, left to right, up and, backwards and forwards. It seems to be harder on the tires than Red Bull is. And under certain conditions, they're going to be put under more pressure than Red Bull are. But, to say that they couldn't have done more is I think, a bit silly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it seems like they are set up to get heat into the tires really quickly, to get things up to optimal as fast as possible. And then on these really hot days, it stays a bit above optimal, just a bit too warm for them. And I mean, the big switch was when they went from from the mediums, right? Is it the mediums? Yeah. They went to the mediums to the hards.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was, especially with Bottas, and I think Hamilton as well, though, that they were both immediately had flat spots, and they immediately had some tyre wear, like in the first few laps. And everybody at that point, just watching the race, just kind of went like, oh no, they're not going to be able to catch Verstappen now. For some reason, he's been able to eke way more out of essentially a used set of hard tyres. This race is done, barring anything else. And I think that's what I meant kind of in the intro as well, that I was expecting something to happen. I was expecting a safety car or something like that, and we just didn't really get it. We had two spins. We had a Vettel spin and we had a Ricciardo spin, and neither of them were out of the race because of them, both just losing traction. And I think Martin Brundle's quote was, what was it? It was ambition over adhesion, which actually I really liked. I thought that was really good. I don't know if he said that before, if that's a one for the bingo, but the Vettel one, I mean, if you're happy to move on to the spins portion of the podcast, the Vettel check-in, it does just feel like, that car, it's beginning now to hit me that it's not just, I was on the side of it was him, and now I'm firmly on the side of it's also, the car for him doesn't work. Like that setup, just they must be favouring a Leclerc setup in some way or another, because here he is, fourth again, managed to make it work. But the whole race weekend seems out of tune for Vettel. So he doesn't qualify well, which means he can't push early. He's obviously not brave enough to push early in the start of the race as well, because when he did, he spins. He spins all the time. So, yeah, I mean, he was not happy with their pit stop strategy. He said to them, "It's like, hey, we talked about this before the race, that we didn't want this kind of gap, and look, here we are. You've done this to me. You've made a mistake." And then afterwards, team principal Minotto was like, "I think the spin kind of cost his race more than our pit strategy." And it's like, wow, shots fired, guys. You're Ferrari. You're not meant to be doing this in public. Do that behind closed doors. Like, it's so unlike them. And that split is now no longer the like nicely managed, like, he's come to a different part of his career and we're not heading in the right direction anymore. It's like, yeah, you're firmly not even on the same page, let alone the same team. So I don't know how they can push on for, we've got heaps more races to go now, and it's never ending. There's just race after race after race every weekend. I can't see this relationship being healed. What do you think Ferrari need to do, or what should Sebastian Vettel do?
There's two things that I want to say about that incident in particular. One is Binotto came out and said it wouldn't have mattered whether we pitted him when we pitted him or a little bit later or earlier. His race was cooked. I think that was code for, and he probably said in other places, he cooked his own race. But I think that was also like another coded message to be like, please don't spin the car and then you'll have a better chance of finishing better. But the second point to make is Vettel was trying to suggest the problem was that Leclerc was going to be coming up behind Vettel, so they pitted Vettel to get him out of the way so Leclerc would have clear air. And the reason they did that is that they were worried about having to tell Sebastian to let Leclerc through, and they were worried he wouldn't. I would probably respond to that by saying, well, Vettel, maybe if the 7 million other times the team asked you to get out the way and you didn't, then we might not be in this situation. The only reason they, you just, when you shit the bed, then you have to sleep in it sometimes. And Vettel is someone who has tried to fuck over the team many times at Ferrari and other teams for his own benefit. And he's gotten away with it many, many times. But, those days are over, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's going to be a real struggle for him wherever he goes now, that his time of having teams built around him, it's never going to happen again. Even if you went to Racing Point / Aston Martin, the owner's son is in the team. We're not going to build the car around you. There's no way. So I can't see where he could go and they would turn him into the number one driver. He is, annoyingly for him, slipped into almost like a Kimi Räikkönen mode. It's like, oh, you're just the guy who was good ages ago, and now, you bring a bit of brand recognition in and hopefully some experience and maturity, but he's not bringing those two things right now either. He's just languishing, and he's not, at least like Kimi Räikkönen, for example, would do team-oriented things sometimes, but Vettel never does. So, I don't know. I can't see how this will continue to work for the rest of the season. Carlos Sainz Jr. is having bad luck at McLaren, and I think he's probably already got his mind on what it's going to be like at Ferrari. So can they make that happen? That we've seen this before, that once the deal's been cut, drivers can find their way to that team before the end of the season. So, what's stopping Vettel being put on gardening leave for irreconcilable differences, and then bringing, Ferrari paying McLaren a bit of money and bringing Carlos Sainz in early?
The problem is that'll leave McLaren without a driver. So then they either need to get another one, try and get Ricciardo, and then if they get Ricciardo out of Renault, then Renault's got to try and get another. I don't know. I just feel like F1 doesn't cope very well to the smallest of adjustments, let alone 3 drivers all, swapping around mid-season. It's not to say it's never happened or couldn't happen, but I don't know. Something in my waters just tells me that one's not really on the cards.
Maybe Ferrari could just get a replacement driver in. Who would Ferrari get? I don't know enough about their young driver program.
I mean, I'm sure they could pull someone for sure, no question, but I think that it would take Vettel really causing a huge problem, like taking out both drivers or something like that, and then just going, you're benched. You're just done. You're leaving at the end of the season anyway. We don't want you in the team anymore. You're just done. Go and sit on the naughty step and think about what you've done. It would take something drastic, not just, he whinged in the press about his strategy. Probably have to be a little bit more than that. So there's a few other things that we could talk about. Do you want to talk about Ricciardo? I mean, this is one of the races that, and I've found so far this season, all 5 races that we've had, but there's been more times than not where I've looked at the grid and kind of gone, okay, you got Bottas and Hamilton right up front. No problems there. Verstappen right up the front, Albon way down the back. Leclerc right up the front, Vettel way down the back. You know, and it just seems to be like, apart from the Mercedes, it seems hard for teams to get both drivers right up there. The best we got, you know, in recent times was this race with Racing Point in, I think, 7th and 8th or 6th and 7th or something. Even then, that was a controversial one. But for whatever reason, the two drivers from the same team seem to just find themselves at almost completely polar opposite ends of the field. And that was kind of, I mean, this week it was Renault and it was Ocon having a sort of an okay race, getting into the minor points paying positions. Ricciardo really struggling. 3 pit stops compared to Leclerc, who stopped once and finishes, you know, 4th. I don't think that's necessarily a sign like, yeah, the strategy for this week is don't stop. And then you stopped, you know, too many times, Ricciardo. I don't think that tells the whole story, spin. But I mean, boy, yeah, he did spin. But I guess my point is more like we're sort of seeing not just this team, but almost every team having problems where it's like, for some reason, one driver just seems to hook it up, get right up there. The other one can't. Sainz way down the grid, Norris way up the grid. I mean, I'm not used to this.
No, I know what you mean. I think it's incredibly close in the midfield. And
I guess that doesn't help.
That is kind of creating issues. And there are some cars that are, on paper, faster. You know, Charles Leclerc can make that car work where Vettel can't. But then, you know, if you were going to walk into any weekend and be like, okay, who's going to finish between 6th and 12th? You know, you'd be like, well, I can imagine one AlphaTauri in there. I can imagine a McLaren in there, probably a Renault. You know, what we do know is it's probably not going to be Haas and it's probably not going to be Williams, but everything else is totally up for grabs.
It could be Williams, but it won't be an Alpha.
No, that's true. Yeah, it won't be an Alpha.
They're the new Williams.
Yeah, they are really struggling. That's true. But I mean, that's kind of what between 6 down to even 14. It's really tight. You know, they finish really closely together. It's one stop, or it's, you know, a lack of safety car or a lack of incidents. This was a pretty clean race. No one was hitting each other really, anything like that. But because they're also evenly matched, you don't get a huge amount of overtaking either. So it does kind of just shake down to those slight differences in strategy, but it's not enough to take, and this has been our complaint for a while, the changes in strategy that a midfield team can make aren't enough to get them from 6th to the podium anymore, really. You know, it took Max Verstappen a big strategic, brainwave, I suppose, or his team a big strategic brainwave to get them from, 5th on the grid is where they started, right? Or was it 4th? Up into the win to beat Mercedes. But no one else can really dream of that kind of thing. I mean, Hülkenberg qualified 3rd. And, Stroll didn't do too badly either, and they just couldn't really make it work, even though, you know, they both were past or in front of Ricciardo coming out of 2nd, 3rd, 4th corners at the start of the race. Daniel Ricciardo having a trademark poor start, the Australian way. So, yeah, even with the advantages of being really, really, really quick and having a great setup, even then, it's still just too close to call in the midfield. And I think it does make for slightly more exciting racing. As I said, we saw Albon get a lot of overtakes done. You know, someone like Lando Norris has been making overtakes on the last few laps. But then it is still, I feel like 2 weekends in a row now, we've had quite stale middle parts of the race because everybody just goes into like reactive mode. Like, let's conserve tires. We don't want to be the first to jump in the pit stops. Let's see what everybody else is doing because it's so close that, you know, everybody just wants to wait and see if anybody else will essentially fuck up.
Yeah. I was thinking about tweeting before the race, Hülkenberg will be P6 by the end of the first lap. And I'm glad I didn't because he only fell to, I think, P5 but or P4. But yeah, I just had a feeling that Hulk was not this wasn't going to be the fairy tale finish for Hulk. It was going to be an average running, made even worse by a late pit stop. The team said for vibrations that he was complaining about, and it was his idea to pit. But boy, it smells a bit when he's the temp guy. He's the ringer, and they make a pit stop, and the owner's son, he's kind of waved through, and Hulk has to follow him home. It just smells a little bit. But you know, who knows? He seems very happy. Setup. Yes, he does. Seems to have been happy to be there. He seems like he's talking to other teams. We'll find out perhaps soon who it is. I have to kind of imagine that he's like a backup option for someone where they're like, We're not happy with who we've got. Going to get rid of them. We're thinking about someone else, but hey, if that person's not free or changes their mind, Hulk, you free? I have to think that it's some kind of situation like that. But anyway, we'll see whether Perez is back, whether or not he gets another friggin' positive test for the next race in Spain. Should we get into the Racing Point penalty that they
so what? A handful of millions of euros and 15 points, which they gained back 14 of this weekend, with 8 points for Stroll and 6 points for Hulkenberg. And the penalty was given not because the FIA think that their brake ducts, which has been the main cause of contention, especially being challenged by Renault, that on this show we said might not be a very big deal. And we had a bit of a like, would it be, wouldn't be, who knows? And now it turns out that the FIA doesn't have a problem with the ducts themselves. They have a problem with how they were designed. So if they were just, those designs were just basically straight up copied from Mercedes, that's being, you didn't design them from scratch. And that's also a bit convoluted because last year that was a part you didn't have to design from scratch, but this season it is. So because they didn't, or the FIA saying that they didn't, Racing Point has been penalised. I have some opinions on this, but I'd love to get your reaction first just to see if we're aligned.
So I think other teams have been making the point of, so what you're trying to say, FIA, is that they've designed the car that's illegal, and rather than saying to them, you have to change the car or disqualify them from the championship, you can let them keep racing. You'll take away the points that they earned in one race, and because there were 3 protest races. The first race that the official protest was lodged, which was by Red Bull, I think they scored 14 points. I don't understand where the 15-point penalty has come from, but anyway, they've somehow penalized them at -1 points minus all the other points that they scored that race. That seems to be an acknowledgement that they should be penalized in the championship for what they've done wrong, which is okay. My problem is they've still got a good, fast car. They will recover that in no time. And if I were Renault or McLaren or some of the other teams that they're competing with in the midfield, I would be very unhappy. And it turns out, oh yes, they are all very unhappy. And rather than just Red Bull protesting now, they have been joined by a raft of other teams all protesting that car. So I think that this problem for the FIA is not going to go away. The money is obviously nothing. I feel like something needed to happen along the lines of like, whatever points you score for the year, 50% of them will be wiped away. Whether you earn 10 points or 100 points, 50% gone. Forget it. Unless you change your car. And if you change your car, great. I imagine it's not an easy thing to change, and I'm sure that they would have made that point. I don't know. Does that set you up nicely for what you want to say?
Yeah, I think it does.
Great.
I think that there is an annoying, I agree with all of that. I think it's a bit annoying. If I was at Racing Point, I'd be annoyed because it was like, well, what does that mean if for instance, the FIA then does go and say, okay, we've listened to the further complaints from all the other teams, and you're going to have to change that. They'd be like, but this is the design. Like, how do you forget the design? Like, how much do we need to change it by? This works really well and might have been the thing we could have come up with. And it's going to be difficult. Like, how much change do we need to make? 10% change, 20% change? What constitutes a changed part? Do you want us just to go back to the drawing board and show that we can design it from scratch and we'll end up with exactly the same part? Maybe. It's complicated. I did find it interesting that Lawrence Stroll, essentially owner / the head of the consortium that owns Racing Point, yes. Had the common complaint that everybody who's relatively new to F1 team ownership says, which is like, this is absurd. How is this sport run like this? How are we being picked on? It's so hard to keep track of. There's so many regulations. It's like, yeah, this is what everybody says. Everybody comes into Formula One, and then they go like, wait a second, why are we being penalized? Those guys do basically the same thing over there and they're not being penalized. It's like, yeah, you're essentially a customer team. You're relatively new to Formula One. This is the annoying politics of the sport. The rules are hard to understand. Like, you should follow them, and you can't. The advantages are trying to find the loopholes. The big teams find the loopholes and they take advantage of them. That's generally why the big teams always win, because they have more resources. They're bigger clout in the sport. We're seeing that with Mercedes right now. They're essentially holding the sport hostage because they don't want to sign the new Concord agreement. Yeah. And they're just being like, nah, we want more stuff. We think we're being hard done by. We're the reason this sport is so successful. And every other team is being like, no, why don't you get it done? And Liberty Media is desperate for them to get that sorted out. did you see the size of the loss, by the way? The like $600 million down to $24 million for this season? Like some incalculable, well, definitely calculable loss that F1's made. So the kind of...
I mean, I can believe it though, because where would the money be coming from?
No, that's true. But all the behind the scenes at two levels, at that team level and at the kind of the sport kind of itself level, has made for probably an upsetting big distraction from what should have been a celebration of 70 years of Formula One in that sense. So yeah, just to come back to the Racing Point thing, I think they are probably even going to be in more trouble because all the other teams have been like, no, this isn't okay. And they'll probably, it wouldn't surprise me if we come up to a, like, you have been disqualified from maybe the Constructors Championship. Like, you're not going to get any Constructors points, but you'll get Drivers points. So your drivers, it's not their fault. They're going to continue to do well and race, but you're not going to place in the Constructors Championship, something like that.
Yeah, the other point that I should probably make is that I think, just in a general philosophical sense, it's pretty problematic for the FIA to let the teams dictate to them whether or not a penalty is suitable or not, whether or not a matter is closed or not. But having said that, they haven't handled it particularly well. They didn't handle the Ferrari one particularly well, and I'm sure that pissed off whole kinds of people. The only thing you could point to is that even the people who are unhappy and still suspicious about what Ferrari were up to last year with their engine, at least you could point to Ferrari's performance and say, okay, whatever went down, they seem to have gone backwards. So look, if, in one way or another, whether you still believe they were guilty of cheating the system or not, it seems as if you think they were guilty, that they've paid a price. The problem with this one is that what price have Racing Point paid? Because it's almost nothing. So, there's a sense that justice hasn't been done. But yeah, I do think it's a little bit problematic that the teams are kind of dictating to the FIA whether or not justice has been done. That's not a way to run any kind of sport or a democracy, which we all know this sport is not. It's one of those other things, and I don't know my systems of governing things. Is it an autocracy? Maybe one of those things. Yeah,
maybe too much of a meritocracy.
Yeah,
it's weird that, there aren't many other sports where, maybe it's particularly a motor racing or a motorsport thing, but, I can't imagine one AFL team then going to the FA, the AFL board and being like, hey, that team's boots got too many studs in them. You should look into that. And the umpires are like, do we even have a rule for that? Okay, we'll look at that. We'll take all of their boots away and have a look. And it's like, well, they seem to be the same boots as last year. Was that a problem? I can't really remember. And then other teams complaining about it. And then the team that's being accused getting to fight it back and then pointing out problems with other teams. It's just constant bickering of Formula One that shouldn't really be the case. Like, the rules should be watertight, but they can't be. They can't make them watertight because there's just so many things to think about in trying to set those rules down. So, I think it's just the teams that are in the midfield know how tight it is, and every point and every win and every advantage you can get over your direct competitors, you have to take in Formula One. And that's probably why someone like Lawrence Stroll is so pissed off. He's like, we're not winning every race. This shouldn't be a concern. Like, can't we just get out there and do the racing thing? But I tell you what, if you were given an opportunity like this and you felt wronged, you would take it. And that's how Formula One goes. It makes it a bit inscrutable and annoying probably to the fans as well, because it just detracts from the racing, but it's part and parcel with this sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sort of putting it off getting to the fantasy because I didn't do very well this week. Maybe we should just move on to having a look at the fantasy league. We're going to look at the race and we're going to look at the league. Which one do you want to do first, mate?
Let's do the race. I've got the race up, and I was always like, oh my goodness, I did something, but no, it's a different Zachary. It's Isaac Auto Art who won. Zachary Carroll, 160 points. Very nice. Congratulations. Well done. Hawk Moon Racing, James Ward in second place with 142, and Hans Pullman, Mike C in position with 127 points.
Terrific.
This week. So congratulations to all of you. It's really tight after position 3. From position 4 down to position 10, it's only 6 points the difference. So keep going, everybody. It's starting to get spicy in there.
Yeah, keep it up. Do the thing. I'll go through the league top 3, and then we'll have a look at where we are in the league, because I know that I've gone backwards somehow. I think Ricardo let me down this week. But anyway, before to get us into the look at the league, I've got an email that I'm going to read out from Jeff. Jeff writes, never thought I would have my fantasy F1 team name read out on the air, as if we're on the air. But anyway, but now that you've read it, I feel I have to add pronunciation support. Thank you so much. This is badly needed. Giulietta is a car model sold by Alfa Romeo. Romeo e
True.
Giulietta is Italian for Romeo and Juliet. This is clue number 1 for correct pronunciation. So he spelt it out. Romeo a Giulietta. And then his name apparently is Vincitore. And he says bonus points for reading Vincitore with Italian rhyming, though. So do you know how to do that? Vincitore with Italian rhyme. What's Italian rhyming? Isn't that just rhyming?
Yeah, I suppose that sounds right, though.
Did I do it right? I feel like I've stopped short of holding my fingers up in front of my face, in the bunched together fingers. But Vincitore, is that pretty good?
Yeah, I think that's good, and I appreciate the email. I also appreciate your effort, Rod, to try and get it right, and we apologise if we've still done badly.
Apologise profusely.
But we don't want to get anybody's name wrong, and if we ever are doing them wrongly, it's because we are so out of our depth and we're making fun of our ability to say them, not your name.
100%. But number 1 in the league, and I believe he was number 1 previously, Romeo e Giulietta by Vincitore. And then number 2, up 8 places, is aforementioned Zachary with Team Eyes Up Auto Art. And then in number 3, down 1 place, I believe, is Hypothesis by Manager Hypothesis. They're the top 3. Quickly find myself in the league, but I think I'm in the 30s. I've fallen off the front page, which I'm not happy about. Actually, no. Maybe I'm in the same position.
Want to bury your body? Put it on the second page of search results, Rod. It's the first rule of SEO.
Maybe I've just been treading water. I seem to maybe still be in 22nd, which is interesting.
Okay. That's not bad.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. I'd be happy if I can, get in the top 25. Do I need to look for you? I'll have a look.
Let's see.
Just on the top of the second page in 26, up 5 places this week. Well done, buddy.
Yeah, it was a good race. Would have been nice if those racing points, had held station a bit more as opposed to mucking about. But take what points you can get.
Look, yeah, that's the mystery of Fantasy League. It's a harsh mistress or master, whichever. I don't know how that works. Time for an F1 quiz, a super quiz, Zach. You ready for the music?
Yeah.
We will accept a couple of questions. Should one only win one? Would one want to have won that one in round 1?
Can you repeat the question?
I'm dreading, Zach, your Silverstone Corner name quiz.
Oh, no. I actually, that did cross my mind. I was like, just fucking around with Mackett's and Beckett's and Stowe and
Stowe, Brooklands.
Hanger.
I was like, I don't know. They're all in
Brooklands. See, we're doing, you know what?
We're doing it. We don't need
We did it. They're all the points. They're all the things. It's not a complicated track.
Let's go home.
How do you feel about the 70th Quiziversary quiz of the British Grand Prix? I didn't come up with a funny name this week.
I guess I have to be fine with it.
Yeah, I was putting this quiz together last night whilst watching television, and I've opened it this morning and gone, oh no snappy name. That means the last quiz was yours with the snappy name. You currently hold the trophy for snappy quiz name. So
I'll take it.
Let's see what you can do with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. Let's start here. These are just questions around the 70 years of the British Grand Prix.
Wow.
I went and looked at all of these different articles and different stupid content pieces around 10 things you wouldn't know about the GP and 10 things you wouldn't know about the Grand Prix of Britain. And it's not called that, but it is that. And it started in 48 and blah, blah, blah. So I just put out a few that I thought were fun and interesting. They're all multiple choice except the last one. So we're going to start
Thank
here,
goodness.
Rod. Hopefully you'll get this one. Jenson Button. You remember him?
Yeah.
He's a punter, but he was also a Formula One driver. He raced in 17 British Grand Prix. How many times did he stand on the podium? Is it A, 3, B, 5, or C, zilch?
On the podium.
On the podium.
Surely not zilch. Surely 3.
No, it's zilch, apparently.
Zilch.
A big
I
donut.
thought he at least got one win and then
it was
maybe a
his
couple
bogey.
others.
The saddest thing is that it's actually well known to be a race where, the homeboys, the home drivers, do really well at. It's just his bogey race. He's no good. No good. Yeah, I mean, he only had 2 good seasons in Formula One, right? So he raced a lot, but he wasn't in a great car all the time. I feel like he'd be doing good in the heat, though. Famous for tyre, not being hard on his tyres.
He's Mr. Tyres.
Yeah, he was Mr. Tyres. Question number 2, Rod. The winner's trophy dates back to 1898, where it started its life as an award for the winner of the A. Brentford Air Show, B. the Richmond Horse Show, or C. the Tadfield Tractor Show.
I'd love for it to be the tractor show. Being an airfield, I'll go air show.
No, it's B, the Richmond Horse Show.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird thing. You know, apparently the guy who ran the horse show was like, oh, you need a trophy for that
We've got this one lying around.
car race. Why don't you use this one? And
it's good for horses, good for drivers, mate.
Yeah, it's just a nice looking trophy. And we commented on it last week, so I thought, I know that's not the trophy we use this week, but rah. Anyway. Question number 3, Rod. The Silverstone Heliport holds the world record for being the busiest airport in a single day, which was on Sunday of the 1999 British Grand Prix. How many helicopter movements were there? Was it A, 1,000, B, 2,500, or C, 4,000?
Holy smokes. Let me think.
Okay.
This is on a race weekend, right?
This is on the Sunday of the 1999 British Grand Prix. That day, it had so many movements of aircraft, specifically helicopters in this circumstance, it became the busiest airport day in the world on record ever.
Oh, look, every time I think of an answer, I'm like, I'm sizing them up and going, yeah, I like that, like to look at that one. I go for it and it's wrong. So I'm going to pick the one that I like, which is 1,000, but I'm going to say it's not that. I'm going to say it's 2,500.
It's neither. It's 4,000. It's a big number. 4,000 helicopter
so many
movements.
Thousands.
That's a lot of landing and leaving and
how many per hour that would be and whether they can do it during the race or not.
Well,
many.
I mean Bernie
it would take
Eccleston
more
quite
than
famously.
2 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, Bernie was always quite famously, he would like be there for the start and then leave. Like after 10 laps, he'd be like, cool, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Go. But that only makes one. So, you know, there's another 3,999 to go. So it's a lot.
If he got his keys, he had to go back and get them. And then he took off and he was like, damn my phone.
And then his wife. And then he's like, the briefcase of money I left at the track as well. Damn it.
Yeah.
So,
whose backpack is this? This isn't my backpack. Bloody Damon Hill has the same backpack as me. He has to go drop it back.
Yeah. Question number 4, Rod. What was the average age of the field in the first ever Formula One British Grand Prix in 1950? Was it A, 25? Was it B, 32? Or was it C, 39? That is the average age of the field of drivers.
I'm going to go 39.
Yes, bang. You learned from the last question. Go for the big number. There were I think the youngest was like 29 and the oldest, there were 3 guys in their 50s. You know, they were mature
Sure,
people.
back then you couldn't even vote until you were like 60. So.
No. You had to be in the House of Lords.
Yes, exactly.
60 people doing all the voting. Yeah, 39. That's what, Kimi Räikkönen, I guess? And then everybody else is half
Alonso.
that age.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah.
Oh, bloody hell.
My age.
Don't remind me. You're, so old. You still got a shot, Rod. Still got a shot.
Move. My body hurts all the time. Anyway.
Last question, Rod. Who came 10th in this weekend's British Grand Prix?
Who came 10th? I don't know. What a shit show this show is. Who came 10th? I'm going to put out there that it was probably George Russell.
No one. It wasn't the British Grand Prix, Rod, this weekend. It was the 70th anniversary race weekend. So, were you even paying attention? For God's sake.
What day is it? I actually don't know.
I looked at the 4 questions I had for this quiz. I'm like, 4 is too few. I need one more bullshit question just to rub salt into the wounds.
Yeah.
There it is, Rod. The 70th Quiziversary quiz. I think you got half of them right. That's good. That's good.
I think next year when we do the 71st Quiziversary quiz, we'll repeat the same theme again. And then for the 72nd anniversary quiz, we'll do the same
questions.
Again.
See if we can get more of them right.
Let's make it a thing. What's 70 anyway as an anniversary? Is it tungsten? Is that the one?
Didn't we? I'm sure we asked this question last week as well.
Yeah, we did, but we didn't come up with anything funny or correct. So those are the 2 criteria.
I'm Googling it. Do you reckon if I just Google 70th anniversary, all
you can totally
talk about the Grand Prix?
Yeah.
What is the 70th anniversary called? Known as the Platinum Anniversary. Platinum is the traditional and modern gift given on the occasion. It's precious, strong, enduring, and doesn't tarnish. Giving a gift of platinum is representative of these qualities in your 70-year marriage. 70-year marriage is a lot. That's what? Get married at 20 and you're now 90? That's a long marriage.
Yeah. I think my grandparents did that. I think they made it to 70, 72-ish or something like that. They hung on there for a while. And the other thing I was thinking was that when an album, back when people bought records and they went platinum in Australia, that meant 70,000 copies sold. But I believe platinum in other countries is different because 70,000 here, that's like a drop in the ocean, 70,000 in the US or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's more, but yeah, it's weird that it happens to coincide with 70 and 70,000. Anyway,
there we go.
The random cul-de-sacs of conversation that we go down on the Super License podcast. What are we going to do, Zach? We've only got one more thing to do, which is final thoughts, which is where we think about a thing and then it's the final thing ever.
The final thing.
Yeah. It's a good song. Well, Zach, if you've got a thought, think 'em if you got 'em, mate. Have you got a final thought for us?
Think 'em if you got 'em. Think 'em if you got 'em. I was going to talk about tyres again this weekend because I was a big fan of moving to the let's not have 16 tyre variants and bring and have people need to know all of them and bring those ones. Let's just have soft, medium, hard at every race, right? But now that we've got these back-to-back races, the changing of what that compound was actually last weekend is now not that this weekend. And it's kind of created more of it's almost made it more complicated in an unforeseen way. I mean, they couldn't see that we'd be racing this closely and this compactly in such a short space of time. And by they, I mean the people who run Formula One. So I feel like it's gotten more complicated. And was probably hard for the commentators and other pundits this weekend to kind of explain. It's yes, I know that it's medium this time, but that was actually the soft last time, which is now the ultra soft, and it's just complicated and difficult. So let's just forget about it and just say they're doing badly on their tires. It's just more of, I think I'm constantly caught up on this, don't make that sport hard to get into. Just kind of keep the focus on this race. So yeah, that was my final thought. Just a bit of confusion, I think, around tyres kind of consistently. Maybe so much that it was confusing the teams as well, except for Red Bull. And maybe we'll never see the end of this constant battle between the technicalities of Formula One versus the on-track action. So yeah. You got a final thought too?
My final thought was along the lines of the winner, Max Verstappen, because coming into this race, I was like, yep, I'll pencil this one in as a Hamilton victory again. And he's going to get to the end of the season having won almost all the races except for that first one. And boy, imagine if we get towards the end of the season and Hamilton has won nearly every race except for the first one. And there's a chance, the few races might still drop off. Imagine one driver winning every race in a season. And now that whole dream is gone, not only for him, but for Mercedes as well, with bloody Max Verstappen stepping up and winning one. Good on him. I don't know whether it was just the anticlimax from the tires exploding last week to this week or something, but yeah, it just doesn't feel satisfying to have a non-Mercedes win with it should. It just doesn't feel like it should.
Yeah. I mean, it did feel, I think partly because it was Mercedes, when they don't win, it feels like they lost as opposed to someone won.
Well, that's certainly what the BBC would have you believe. Yes.
Yes. It wasn't Lewis Hamilton's fault. He tried his darndest.
It's either Lewis Hamilton is better than everybody or someone denies Lewis Hamilton victory. It's right, okay, I understand what you're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, Max needed to be sold on his own tyre strategy, but he made it work and Red Bull got it right.
Oh, yeah. The other thoughts. Here's the other. I was trying to keep this in my pocket for a final thought. I was like, remember, Rod, when it comes to final thought, remember this thought. Max's banter on the radio, everyone's celebrating him. I don't want to drive like a granny. Remember to sanitize. And then Christian Horner fired back, yes, mate, that win was a fully sanitized win. Fuck, that's awful. That is just fucking atrocious. And if you can't do banter, don't do it. That's what I say.
Stop trying to fake the banter.
Yeah, don't like it.
Try and do the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It turns out we were grumpy last week, and it turns out I'm still grumpy. Sorry.
It's the heat for me.
It's the heat for you. You have an excuse.
I'm expiring. I like Max Verstappen, though. I like that he's trying to keep things light. I accused the sport of having no levity, and that Lando Norris was the only one who was bringing just a fraction of like, hey, let's not take things too seriously. Let's poke fun at the sport a bit and try to be a little less like all the time. It's so hard and complicated, and we're really out there, and isn't this a difficult thing? Whereas, you know, Max Verstappen, I think at least has a little bit of the like, okay, it's fine. Like, let's keep it going. You know, we talk about Daniel Ricciardo having that. I think Lando has that. There was a great little clip going around of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo duking it out during an interview because Lando just came across him. I like stuff like that.
It's that little clip. I don't know why, but that captured the imagination of people here, and woke up the next morning and just the word Lando was trending on Twitter. Not Daniel, not Ricciardo, Lando. Incredible. So he's the goods, and I think he'll be a good influence on Ricciardo, who we've talked about recently, how he's sort of borderline annoying, almost bullying or something like that. Yeah. But Lando will be a positive influence on him, get him back in good spirits, and showing him just reminding him what it was like, 7 years ago or 6 years ago when he was winning, doing shoeies, and everyone, he was just the darling of the grid. Yeah. People are already talking about what a dream pairing they're going to be, and I think it's a good time for him to be pairing with Lando for sure. Yeah, good pairing. Lando can be the fun, interesting cheese, and Daniel can be the effervescent, bubbly beer. What a great pairing. I thought you were making some kind of hamburger analogy where you're like, Daniel can be the meat and Lando can be the salad. But then you went cheese and beer, and I was like, oh, it's gone off the rails. Delicious. Look, like Max Verstappen, I appreciate your effort. I just don't appreciate the outcome. Don't rate my banter. Well, look, your banter is one step ahead, but yeah, geez, work to be done. All right, we'll do better for next time at the Spanish Grand Prix, which again is only a few days away. So look forward to that. At the end, the last of our second triple headers, and then we will work out what comes after that. Don't forget to get your predictions in for fantasy. That is where all the points are at, my friends. You've just got to try and have a stab at who's going to finish on the podium. Have a stab at how many safety cars there's going to be. Have a stab at how many likes and retweets Lando Norris is going to get, or whatever weird bonus question comes up. And let's be grateful that we have a fantasy program that we can understand, because so many people use the other one, and they like people I work with and stuff, and they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand what to do. Let's just embrace that this one makes sense. Yeah, it's good. I love this one. Thankful for that. Yeah, that's why we do it. It's good to be thankful for something, I think. Yeah. And it's, right. I mean, we're getting caught up in some of the lamities of Formula One, but I'm grateful that we got racing all the time. Our favourite sport is here. No. And a lot of people don't have their fave sports. It was inside us the whole time. It's getting a bit weird, Zach. Let's wrap it up. Until next time, my name's Ben Rodney. My name is Zach Sanitized Priest. We'll see you in Spain, baby. Bye-bye. Bye. I forget. Oh, yeah.